Hi, everyone. This is Miss Esposito. I am doing the lesson for today on Introduction to Rational Numbers. I want to first make sure that you guys get to the right page and that you're ready to take notes. So make sure you go to page 4 in your handout. I know that we've kind of been jumping around a little bit. But for today, you're going to need pages 4 and 5, all right? So at the bottom, it'll say 4, and then the bottom of page 5 will have a 5. At the top, it says Intro to Rational Numbers, and it's student handout number 1. And that's where we're going to start today. Okay, so I'm just going to start at the top. If you need to get these notes, go ahead and pause the video and then come back to it. All right, the number system classifies numbers based on their type and characteristics. So here we have 4 different types of numbers, okay? The first type of numbers are called whole numbers. Whole numbers are the set of all positive counting numbers starting with 0. Examples of whole numbers are 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. All of the positive counting numbers are whole numbers. Now, natural numbers is just the set of positive integers, okay? Such as 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. This is not including 0. That's the difference. Natural numbers do not include 0. All right, next we're going to talk about integers. Integers are the set of whole numbers and their opposites. And so examples of that would be just picking random numbers here, -5 and +5, -10 and +10. And let's make sure that I point out that 0 is also an integer. So you need to understand that 0 is an integer also. All right, rational numbers are numbers that can be written as fractions, terminating decimals, and repeating decimals. Some examples of that would be -5.6 or a fraction 3/4 or the fraction 3 1/6, or a decimal that looks like 1.333 and goes on forever. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. What this does not include are called irrational numbers. And an irrational number would be something like pi. Now, pi looks like this. That's the symbol, and you're going to learn a lot more about this in the future in other grades. But if you put pi in your calculator, it's a number that goes on forever and ever. It has to stop because there's not any room here. But it goes on forever and ever and doesn't stop, but it also does not repeat. Okay, so pi is an irrational number. All right, let's move on down to this next table. All right, determine if the fraction below is a terminating or a repeating decimal. Okay, and what we have to do for this is you will need some scrap paper probably to work this out with me because it's going to take a little bit of room and I don't want to write all over the place on this notes page. All right, so if I'm going to turn this fraction 5/6 into a decimal, I need to divide, okay? So this should be a bit of a review, but also more practice. So I have 5/6, okay, which means I'm going to take 5 divided by 6. So 5 goes on the inside, and we're going to divide by 6. Since 6 doesn't go into 5, I'm going to go ahead and add my decimal and my 0, and bring that decimal straight up. And then I take 6 into 50. 6 goes into 50 8 times. Remember, we're going to do divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. Okay? So when we divide, 6 divided into 50, we get 8. And next we're going to multiply. 6 times 8 is 48. And then we subtract. 50 minus 48 gives me 2. And now we have to bring down, but there's nothing to bring down. Okay? I think maybe in the past you guys would have put remainder 2, but we do not do remainders. We are just going to add a 0 and bring it down. And now we are back to divide again. Okay, 6 divided into 20 is going to be 3. And now you multiply. 6 times 3 is 18. And then we subtract. 20 minus 18 is 2. And now we're to bring down. And we have nothing to bring down, so we put a 0. We bring down the 0. And we're starting to see a pattern here. 6 divided into 20 is going to give me 3. 6 multiplied by 3 is 18. And then we subtract. We get a 2. And we can see that we're just going to, every single time, keep getting 2. Okay? So what that means is we're going to have 20 every time. So this 3 is just going to keep going every time, forever and ever. So that's a repeating decimal. And we would just take a line and put it right on top of that 3. And so we would write this as 0.83 and put a line on top of the 3 to show that it's repeating. All right, so I'm going to come back over here and write this as a decimal. It's 0.83 repeating. And this is a repeating decimal. All right, I'll do the next one with you, and then I'm going to have you guys do that last one. All right, so the next one, I keep hitting my camera, sorry. The next one is 2 over 11, okay, and we're going to write that as 2 divided by 11. And 11 doesn't go into 2, so we have to add a decimal and a 0, okay? Go ahead and do that. How many times does 11 go into 20? So again, this is our divide, DMSB. So we're going to divide first. 11 into 20 goes 1 time, and that's 11. And 20 minus 11, subtract is the next thing. So we take 20 minus 11. That's going to be 9. And the next step after subtract is to bring down. And there's nothing to bring down, so we have to do a 0. And so we bring down the 0 here. And now we take 11 into 90. And how many times does 11 go into 90? Or you take 90 divided by 11. And that gives you 8. Okay. 11 times 8 is 88. So that's the multiply. Then we subtract. Get a 2. And so we're going to add a 0 to bring down. And now we're back to divide again. Okay, 11 divided into 20 is 1. Now we multiply. 11 times 1 is 11. And then we subtract. 20 minus 11 is 9. And we are to bring down. So we have to add a 0 to bring down. And we have 90. And we're kind of starting to see a pattern here. 11 divided into 90 is 8, right? And now we multiply. 11 times 8, 88. And now we subtract. 90 minus 88 is 2. And then we bring down. And as you can see, we are just going to keep getting the same thing over and over and over. We are going to keep getting 1, 8, 1, 8, 1, 8. So that is a decimal that repeats. And I forgot, we have to make sure we always, first things first, bring that decimal up. I'm sorry about that. Always bring the decimal up. So we would write this decimal as 0.18, but in this case, the 1 and the 8 both repeat. Okay, so you're going to put that line, and it's going to cover the 1 and the 8 when you write this decimal. So I'm going to come back over here and write this as 0.18, and I'm going to put that right there. And this is repeating. Okay. Now I'm going to have you guys do 17 divided by 20. So you'll do this on your paper and then answer it also on the Ed puzzle. Okay. Now that we're back, I am going to explain this just a little bit, but you're going to do this on the Ed puzzle, and then when we get back on our lab meet, we're going to talk about this some more together as a discussion. So the question is it possible for a number to be both a whole number and an integer? Why or why not? And so you're going to do that on your Ed puzzle. All right, let's move on to percents. All right, now on to page 5. At the top of the page, we're going to talk about percents now. So we've already talked about fractions and we've talked about decimals. Now we're going to talk about percents. All right, percents can be ordered, but they must be converted to decimals. So the first thing we have to do in order to put percents in order is to convert them to decimal. So 25% is also 0.25. There are 2 ways to do this, and I'm going to show you both ways. The first way is to put your decimal at the end of your whole number and move it to the left 2 spots, 1, 2. So that makes 0.25. So the first way is to move the decimal to the left 2 times. Okay? The second way is to divide by 100. It does the exact same thing. So if I were to, in my calculator, take 25 divided by 100, it's going to give me 0.25. Okay, so you can either move the decimal point to the left or you can divide by 100. So number 4, I'm going to start with moving the decimal point to the left. All right, so I have a decimal point is right there. It's invisible. Okay, it's to the right of my number. If I move it 2 spaces to the left, I'm going to get 0.50. That's my decimal. For number 5, if I were to divide by 100, if that's the way that I like to do it, then I would just take 68 divided by 100, and I'm going to get 0.68, which is exactly the same as moving the decimal to the left. I'm going to write this out so you can see 65 divided by 100. 2 different ways to do that, 0.68. All right, so on this one, I'm going to go back to moving my decimal to the left, and it's invisible, but it's to the right of that number. So if I move it 2 spaces, I end up with 0.19. And I'm also going to do number 7 with you guys. It is 33.3 repeating. So I can put this in my calculator, or I can see that there's already a decimal here. If I take that decimal and move it 2 places to the left, it keeps focusing on my hand. I'm sorry about that. It's going to give me 0.333 repeating. And so you can put that line on any threes. You could write that as 0.3 repeating. You only have to put 1 3 as long as you show that it repeats. All right, I'm going to let you guys do 8, 9, 10, and 11 on your Ed puzzle, and then we'll check on when we come back. Okay, so number 8. Again, you can either divide by 100 or move the decimal point. I tend to prefer moving the decimal point. It's a little bit easier. Either way is going to get you the right answer. Your decimal point is right there. If you move it 2 places to the left, you get 1.88. For this one, you should get 2.37. For number 10, it may have confused you a little bit. If you take this decimal point and move it 2 places, you have an open spot. You have to just add a 0 there. Okay, so if there's nothing there, you have to put a 0 there. So this should be 0.009. And this, if I take my decimal and move it 2 places to the left, I get 1.0. If you have another 0 there, it is still correct. If you just wrote 1, it's also still correct. All right, let's do number 12. We're going to order these from least to greatest, and then you're going to do number 13 on your Ed puzzle. All right, so number 12. In order to put these from least to greatest, we have to turn them all into a decimal, okay? So I have 55%, and I'm going to make that a decimal by moving the decimal 2 places to the left. That makes that 0.55. And then I need to change this to a decimal. And we did this one already. It's 1.0. Right, so now I just have to put them in order from least to greatest. So the smallest one here is going to be 0.55. The next one is 0.67. The next one is 1.0, and then 1.24. Now I'm going to have you guys do number 13 on your Ed puzzle. All right, let's check number 13. Again, we're going to make these percents into decimals, and there's only one, and that's going to turn out to be negative 0.5 instead of negative 50%. Okay, so again, from least to greatest, the negative 0.75 is further to the left on this number line. So it's going to be the smallest number. And then comes negative 0.5. And then 1.5, and then 2. Okay. Now I'm going to have you guys also do number 14 and 15 on your Ed puzzle. Problem. Let's check the problems 14 and 15. All right, so the following numbers are placed on a number line. Which of the following best represent point A? Negative 2/3. Well, we know point A is definitely negative, but we also know it's negative 1 and something. It's in between negative 1 and negative 2. So it's going to be negative 1 and something. Honestly, at this point, you can pretty much cross out all of them except the correct answer, which would be C, just by kind of looking at it. If you wanted to, you could divide each of these problems to get decimals. And if you did that, you would get, if you did 2 divided by 3, this would have given you 0.667. And I kind of rounded there. Actually, I did round to the nearest thousand. If you take 2 divided by 3, that's going to give you -2 and 0.67. Okay, so all I did here was I took 2 and I divided it by 3. And so that is -2.67. I just brought the 2 over. Okay. If I were to figure out what decimal is -1 and 1/3, I would take the 1 divided by the 3. I would figure out what 1/3 is. And then I would bring the -1. So it would be -1.33. And then 2 divided by 3 is going to be 0.67 if I'm rounding. So the answer here should have been C. Okay. For number 15, Julian tracks his progress on his reading quizzes over a period of 4 weeks. Which list shows his scores from greatest to least? All right, so we got to figure out what these scores are. Again, I'm going to turn these into decimals. You'll do so by dividing 17 divided by 20. I'm not going to work that out for you. I'm going to assume that you did that. If you need help or have questions, make sure you ask on the live Google Meet. That should be 0.85. 9 divided by 10 would be 0.9. When we change this to a decimal, we move the decimal point 2 to the left and get 0.65. And this one is already 0.75, and this one is 0.65. All right, so if we are going to order from greatest to least, 0.9 is the biggest, so that would be week 2. And next would be week 1. Next is 0.85. And then is week 3 at 0.75. And the least is 0.65, so that would be week 4. And so we're looking for 2, 1, 3, 4, which is B. Again, I might have gone through those 2 a little quick. If you have questions, make sure you ask them on the live meet, and we will see you soon.